Like I said before lunch, we learn to speak before we learn to think. So I have 4 younger brothers, as it happens to be, and I'm pretty sure at some point I would have been fighting with them. I can't remember because we don't do that anymore. But, but anyway. So I'm sitting playing with my toys. I might be 6 years old, and my brother is 4, and at some point he reaches over and he takes something that I consider to be mine. Which, by the way, that word I think is very problematic. But anyway, we'll just leave that for another anthropological study about other ways of being in the world. So he takes my toy and I hit him. An authority figure comes in the room and downloads this into me by saying, Rachelle, that's wrong. We don't hit in this family. Say you're sorry and go to your room. Can you hear it? Now, how long does that take me? It doesn't take me very long to deliver that, right? So here's what never happens as a result of me being spoken to in that way. I don't ever say, thank you for that message. Something about your tone of voice and the words you're using is really helping me to clearly see how your need for safety and respect and harmony is not being met. And those are very important needs. So I'm guessing that you would like those needs to be met for my brother, his safety, and for me, and for everybody in the family. In fact, I'm guessing you might want it for everybody on the planet. That's my guess. So, now, we don't expect a child to be able to respond in that way. However, I think every parent wants to instill that very thing in the child. But notice the difference between the language between that. Now I've used abstract language. Rachelle, that's wrong. There we go. Diagnosis. In a way that's really confusing. We don't hit in this family. First of all, that's a lie because I just did it and I think I'm part of the family. Say you're sorry and go to your room. Now I find fascinating that in NVC, what I think most of the time I'm being asked to help people to say are the following things. Please, thank you, I'm sorry, and I love you. And it's interesting because it's often the things that parents will tell or teachers will tell the kids to say. Say this. So it sort of comes as no surprise to me that often they're said without understanding the deeper meaning of what they actually mean. So here's the beginning of, I would say, real disconnection from self. Because watch this. Sorry. I say this to my brother. Sorry. I have no idea what that means. You can't make a person feel sorry, and by saying them that they need to do this. So now this rattles our very concept of what parenting is all about. But if you study cultural anthropology and then you go around the world and see how parenting happens, it is not this way all over the world. And I find it fascinating that the places that have the least amount of violence, they are not training that way. So, Joseph Chilton Pearce said, all of us know intuitively that we're not by nature savage beasts. Fewer of us are aware of the fact, however, that we're driven to some fairly beastly behaviors by enculturation itself, despite the fact that it's supposed to prevent it. This is why I consider that particular model. This is a model of communication. I'm pointing to his knee. It's not his knee that's a model. He wrote down the diagnosis, the demand, the denial of personal responsibility, and deserved thinking. It's very important because when we're not practicing the other, we're somehow practicing this. That's the only way I can come to see it. It's that we're either in alignment with life as it's unfolding in this way to continually practice what First Nations people call all my relations. Everything is always all my relations, and it doesn't stop here at human beings. It's like it's in the garden, it's in the roots, I got to remember that there's going to be a day I won't be here and other people will need to eat. It's in all of that relating that is going on. And it's easy to get disconnected from it by that very simple, Rachelle, that's wrong, So, and I can tell you the result was I'd be in my room. Like, if you really think about it, while I'm in my room, do you think I'm thinking about the error of my ways?
No.
Like, if you think back to that time, we're pretty much all subjected to it. That's not what I was thinking. So depending on whether you're submissive or rebellious, you're going to be moving somewhere between those two. And it could. How do you feel about your brother, for one thing?
Stupid little brother took my thing.
Yeah. And
How
now
come he doesn't get punished?
exactly, that's not fair. You know, he took my toy. That's not fair.
Yeah.
And then you're also trying to imagine, like, next time I'll just make sure authority's not watching. Welcome to the prison system, you know. So we're creating the need for policing. That's what gets created by that way of relating. That's why I'm saying I hope people stop at red lights because they value safety, not because they're worried about what will happen to them if they don't do it. It's a very different orientation. One is around needs, and the needs never stop here. It's a web that goes into all of us, which is why, too, when I'm talking about needs, I encourage people, instead of saying, I have a need for, I'm looking for what's needed. What does a relationship need in order to thrive, as opposed to what I need? Because me, my, I, they can have a... I know we need to use them as some reference point, but it's the amount of energy that goes into it that can sometimes be alienating. So, you see, for me, once we really understand that, and we're scanning the environment and our own psyche for how this exists, because you never got to decide the model of communication that you used. And when people say, I don't want to do NBC, I don't want to do a model of communication, my response is, well, you are using a model. What one are you using? It's that question of how's it working? So we don't think of that as a model, but consider what your first reaction to something is, as something that was taught to you. And that whoever taught it to you wasn't thinking, wow, I really want to teach you something that doesn't work. You know, that's going to make it difficult for you to reconnect with that person after you use it. Nobody has that. Oh, they're not thinking that thought. So I remember being a kid and thinking, oh my God, that was one reason why I didn't speak. Speaking got people into trouble. Don't have an opinion. Don't think anything. Just see if you can get through this with the least amount of pain. That was the strategy that I used. And then I started to study.